Daytona Beach Planning and Zoning meeting to order and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Hoffman.
Here.
Commissioner Blair.
Here.
Commissioner Couts.
Here.
Commissioner Schuster. Here. Chairman Ebling.
Here.
Commissioner Morose.
Here.
Commissioner Hagedorn.
Here.
Commissioner Haycock. Mayor Ross.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the June 2nd, 2026 meeting? Do I have a second? Second. Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. New business, Carrie?
Yes, ma'am. So stop me if you've heard this before. We're going to talk tonight about data centers and co-location facilities. So the basics of what happened in this situation is the ordinance that was brought to you previously was an ordinance that I wrote along with Cole Bradbury, our previous city attorney. We took the recommendation from the Planning Commission and put it on the board agenda for their first meeting of July. And our new contract attorney, Lauber and Associates, got a hold of it, and they have done quite a bit of work on co-location facilities and data facilities for other communities, specifically the city of St. Louis. And they went through our code, and they liked it, but there was a few things that they wanted to do more specifics on. And candidly, you know, when your attorney, the way that I look at it, when your attorney is the ones who would end up protecting you or defending you if something came up in the future pertaining to an ordinance, wants to change something or to strengthen something so that it helps them in their, you know, possible defense of the community, you go ahead and you listen to it. And so what they have done, and I'm not going to go through everything. I'm sure that you've read through it and seen the differences, but basically they've changed some of the definitions, added to the definition of co-location facility and data facility, along with breaking out different types of data centers, basically oriented around the amount of intensity of that data center. You might see there's a micro data center in there, which obviously is a smaller data center in comparison to some of the others. The bottom line is functionally these are a new situation that most communities have not had to face in the past. We're all kind of kicking it right now. And putting out the best regulation that we possibly can, knowing that these things are possibilities in our future. You know, it's a situation where the city of Osage Beach, you know, coming from the perspective of a planner who would look at, you know, land use for these type of things, the city of Osage Beach is probably not going to be the type of place that they're going to consistently look for, especially the large type, because we just don't have that kind of property available. Plus our costs to develop are substantial because of topography and those type of things. But it's important to have these type of ordinances online. The one thing I will say, we took morals out of the purpose for Luke. Because the basics of that particular portion is that's exactly what the purpose of our zoning code says. So I just put that in there to keep it consistent, but we took it out. So, all right. Other than that, I will be honest with you. A lot of the things that they put in here are things that I'm still going to have to wrap my head around, but I'll be very honest in telling you that if a data center of this type or of any type comes into the community requiring everything that would need to be done, the greatest chance is that it's going to be consultants that we hire to do the reviews that will do the majority of the work on a possible or proposed data center within the community, and work back and forth with their team to make sure that they meet this code and that we more than anything, protect our community, its citizens, business owners, and property owners. So with that, and without going through every detail that they put in here, I would recommend approval of the amended ordinance that is put in front of you tonight.
Can I ask an ignorant question?
I'm sure it's not ignorant, but you can ask any question you want.
What are the chances that a little town like ours, a little city like ours, can just put a ban on data centers, period, within our city limits?
Cannot.
We can't.
Cannot, yeah. We cannot ban, there are only uses that are banned constitutionally that are able to be banned. Anything that is not banned constitutionally or by federal law, a city has to provide the opportunity for them to locate within the community. That doesn't say, certainly is not saying that we have to allow them to go wherever they want. That's why we have, land use and zoning codes, period. We are able to control where they go, but we cannot just say, you can't come here. It's kind of like adult uses and those type of things. You can't just say, we're in the Bible Belt, you can't bring one here. So it's very similar to the ideology behind that.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
Any questions?
Oh, yeah.
Carrie, on the micro data center, I have heard rumblings from other communities about them being able to like cluster or connect them to make it not a, like they can put several micros and call it micro, and that way they can put lots of them in and it becomes
Right.
really what.
No,
Is there any more?
we have built-in protection in here that will keep them in, and it's all based on the facility that they put on an individual property, and you cannot connect or co-locate with separate properties within the city of Osage Beach. So what they're going to put on a property, and it is defined by that code. So that wouldn't be something we would have to worry about.
Was there anything that the legal team directly walked back from something that you wanted in there or thought should be in there?
No, functionally, the only thing that they did was they were more specific on what the studies that we would require would lay out that they would need to provide us. My goal when I did it was to provide us the flexibility, because every single one of them are different, to be able to ask for different things depending on property, location, size of facility, and those type of things. And when I had a pretty good discussion with them. Nobody who's been doing this for 27 years is real happy about having outside attorneys come in and say, hey, you should have done this. So that's, I guess, a little bit of my pride still coming out. I thought I lost that in my 20s, but I guess not. But we discussed that fairly heavily. No, this doesn't walk back anything that we had in there. It just further defines certain situations, which, if you know attorneys, that's always something that makes them a little happier.
Sure.
So that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you.
I just thought it was interesting. There's 92 data centers in the state of Missouri. That was just astonishing to me. Obviously, in the bigger cities is where the more majority of them is, but, because I had never heard of the data centers.
And those 92 are all of varying intensities. So there's some of them that you wouldn't have a clue what they are, There aren't as many of the ones that you drive by and go, woo, what is that? I think there's 3 in the state of Missouri that are kind of the ones that are making news now. The rest of them are smaller scale.
Okay.
I was just going to say, there are some data centers up in Columbia. I mean, you would not even know they're in residential areas. They look like existing buildings.
Columbia has 5.
Yeah, the smaller ones, you would not know. They are not going to have a negative impact on the community, especially because having worked in a data center, you don't want people to know it's a data center, the smaller ones. So,
And of course,
yeah.
those don't have the impact on like the water system and noise pollution and everything that the larger ones do. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, they're making news now because of the big ones, and the big ones really do need this type of oversight. because of the drains they're putting on in the community and the environment. So I understand that, but the majority of the data centers, the ones that are making the news have given all data centers kind of a bad image. But you might drive by them and not even know it. Yeah, the micro ones especially, you aren't going to know that. The ones up in Columbia, you're going to drive by them and not even recognize them. It's the big ones, this type of stuff really is going to have the impact on, and we want to really closely look at before allowing in.
Interesting.
By the way, this is Mark Haycock, our new commissioner.
Yeah, and if anybody ever wants to tour a data center, let me know. I can make some phone calls. I don't work for one anymore, but I can get you, in so you can see the smaller ones. If you really want to understand, what the smaller ones do. Because the smaller ones are the ones that run the state of Missouri, Granted, the government has, their stuff in AWS and in Microsoft and Azure, but the state government also has some stuff in facilities here in the state of Missouri as well. So, and the state of Missouri has their own data center too. So.
Interesting.
Well, and I will say, because you weren't here for the last one we voted on, and what this does change, and to actually address what Alderman Hoffman had to say about whether or not it walks anything back, I think one of the things it does do is, as Carrie talked about, was the different tiers, and it mentions the smaller ones, and it mentions the ones, and it differentiates between all data centers, because the last one I think was a lot more broad.
It was broad, yep.
And just kind of said all data centers, would kind of excluded a lot of those smaller ones and different ones. And it didn't even really define the differences between all the differences. It was, this one's like this amendment's like 8 pages, I think. I can't remember how long, and it's basically replacing the previous one we voted on last time.
Yeah.
And how far through did it get through the board? How far in the process did it get before it was flagged to say, hey, wait, let's take another look at this, let's send it back to
It was going to the board, and that's when Lauber saw it.
Okay.
So it didn't even make a first reading?
It hasn't gotten to the board.
Yeah, I looked through this one extensively. In fact, the day Carrie sent out the packet, I started reading it, and I don't see anything that would cause any issues from a technology side. I think it's very well put together.
The majority of it is still what you've seen originally, just there are some tweaks that they made that are understandable.
Because what it reminds me a lot of is like the 90s and cell phones.
Well, yeah. So what it reminds me of is cell towers.
Right, cell towers,
So
right.
cell towers is one of those things where back in the 90s, even in the early 2000s, people didn't want them anywhere near, and we had high-end regulation on them, and now people are like, can they put one on top of my house? Whatever you can do to make their service better, they're all for it now. But there were times where, probably before any of you all were on the commission or even serving with the board, there were times where we had some real knockdown dragouts about, cell tower by Osage Hills Church, had a full house, and now people could care less. Whatever they can do to get better service, So.
Well, and there's still remnants of that up, some of those noise buffers and landscaping
stuff,
and
yeah.
fences that were required at the time, the hoops that they had to jump through at the time to get through there, that will ultimately just made our roaming charges more expensive at the time. And then, the federal government got involved in 96 and they said, so we're kind of in that spot. We're in that same kind of era of.
We're pre that with data centers.
Because what happened was there was a whole patchwork of different regulations all over the country, and it kind of got rid of the little guys, and so then the big guys had big enough lawyers to go, well, we'll either follow your rules or we won't, or we'll sue you.
Right.
We're going to put up the tower regardless if we want to put up the tower.
Right.
And I think the last version of this kind of set us up more to some of those lawsuits and those challenges. I think this one kind of lines that out a little bit better and kind of protects us from some stuff.
Any other comments or questions? Would someone like to make a motion? Luke?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We're just gonna do a regular vote, Carrie.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. How about item B, which is off-street parking and loading requirements for improvement of parking areas, parking lots,
And stuff.
and stuff.
All right. Well, this is an ordinance that is basically an addition of an exception to the off-street parking and loading requirements. And this is coming to you on request of some of the board members. And the function of it is, and I'll go ahead and read it to you. D in exceptions, parking facilities located at the trailheads of public natural trails that are not improved to include hard surface trail beds will not require hard surface requirements. Construction will be allowed using an approved all-weather dustless material, provided those areas meet the requirements for stormwater mitigation established by the City of Osage Beach design guidelines and the information packet. Parking facilities must comply with ADA and ADA standards for accessible design for parking and City of Osage Beach and the City of Osage Beach design guidelines. So the basics of what that is saying is for these new trails that are going in throughout the community, we're going to allow them to have a dustless surface, gravel or other kind of parking surface, while they still have to meet the ADA requirements for the one space. So this is very similar to what the state has for their trailheads. If you go to a state trailhead, they have the gravel or other type of dustless cover, and then they'll have the ADA required space or two. Depends on how much you want to put in. The requirement is 1% of the parking lot. So typically that's going to be one space. So it is required to be hard surface with a loading zone. And with that, staff recommends approval.
Are there any questions or comments on this?
Do we require private folks, we require private folks to pave this, would we require a private business or a private individual to pave the same kind of parking area?
Yes, this is only for public. So if you wanted to put in a private trail on private property, this is going on property that has easement to this public group. But if it's a private situation, yes, we would, unless there would be something that makes it not for profit, which is what this is. So if you're going in and paying, $25 to use the trail, yes, we would require them to provide public hard surface parking. And if you're going to be public, similar to this, where it doesn't cost you to go on it, whether you're in a park or whether you're in a situation where it's a state or city or even a private group that acquires easement, but there's no limitation by way of cost or personage who can use it, then they could apply for this or benefit by this exception.
So this only applies to publicly owned or city-owned land?
Public used, not for profit.
But I guess who owns the land?
Well, this will be owned by numerous different groups.
So it just depends on what it's used for?
Yes, so there's a lot of this that's gonna be in right-of-way. There's a lot of this that goes through private property that have gained easement to go through private properties. There's a lot of it in the state park. So it's got multiple property owners, but they've gained easement for the entire trail system through different properties.
Okay. But a similar type of facility or whatever would be required to be paid?
If it's for profit, if you have to pay to get on it and.
But somebody else could come on a completely separate project and have something that's.
A completely separate project that is going to have the same type of usage would be able to do it like this, yes.
Okay. It's a matter of whether you charge or not.
Equitability.
If you charge or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Someone like to make a motion? Motion to approve.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. On to item C. regarding the additional zoning district regulations.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is something that I would plan to bring to you for some time. This is 100% what I would call a cleanup effort, a little bit of house maintenance, in order to make our setback requirements more understandable to the public and more equitable to the public. The function of it is now, one, collector status streets. Within the code, it says state designated numbered roads. Well, there's probably about 3 of us in this room that even know that there used to be state numbered and designated roads. At some point, all of those folks are going to be gone, so I wanted to clarify those. Plus, within the different aspects, whether it be arterial, collector, or local status street, not every arterial or collector or local status street are equal to each other. For example, Osage Beach Parkway, which was once Highway 54, goes from 100 to 150 feet of right-of-way. Okay, there are portions of the city where the width of the right-of-way is 100. There are portions within the city where the right-of-way width is 150. And this required a 75-foot from the center line on all the arterials, which also included KK, 42, and D, which have 60 foot. Okay, so the issue that you get in if you don't differentiate between a 100 to 150 to a 60 foot is you push 75 foot back and you're pushing all those uses that much further back off of the road to a point where it makes it difficult to develop, and it's also very inequitable as it pertains to what we're trying to do here. The main thing that I wanted to change is item 2 said the minimum front yard setback in all zoning districts is 25 feet as measured from the property line. I've always, candidly, it's not something that I've ever used. It doesn't make sense to what we have written further down. It really feels like something somebody threw in last second who didn't have a clue what they were doing. A 25-foot required setback from a property line makes sense in a residential zone for residential uses, okay? When you're talking about Osage Beach Parkway, or formerly Highway 54, as I was explaining to Chad and Angie earlier, is you basically have a strip of right-of-way throughout the community. And if you provide a regulation of 75 foot from the center line, whether it's 100 or 150 feet, you establish a line from the center line on both sides that is equidistant for all of the property owners. Okay, so if you're in one of those areas that's in a 50-foot right-of-way and 75 foot from the center line, will allow you to build your structure right up to the property line, and you can do that. If we required you to push back 25 foot in the areas that are 100 or 120 or 130, those people only have to go 75 feet back, but they don't have to do the additional 25. You're creating a building envelope where other business owners or developers can build their building that would ultimately block your building because you were pushed back further. That is not the ideology that is trying to be created by having the 75-foot center line setback. And one of the things that I will tell you in looking at new urban development patterns, you know, we love the idea, and it's a very popular idea to have something more like Chad's building, where you have the building up closer so you get to see the nice facade of the building, and the parking lot is on the side or in the rear instead of going through town and all of the parking lots being right out in front, and all you're looking at as you drive through town is parking lots with lights. So this provides them the option to do that. It establishes that line that is equitable from the center line of the right-of-way throughout the community. And obviously, if you want to push your building back further, you can do that, but it protects you from being required to be set back further than what your neighbor may be, so your building is blocked. That's bad policy. It's not something that I want to do. And it's something that I'm fixing with this. The other thing that I would tell you is, from the collector status street perspective, collectors themselves also are not equal in what they are. So we've got Passover, Nichols, some of the larger roads that have 60 width, but then you've got Malibu Road, which has 40 at the beginning, and about the time you get to the cemetery, it goes down to 30, and if you require 55 foot from the center line of 30-foot right-of-way, you're making all of those houses be 40 foot from their front property line. And if you've ever been down Malibu, if you can count more than 2 houses that are 40 feet from their front property line, I would be shocked. I live on Malibu. My house may be one of them because it does sit a little ways off. But the problem is when you have a situation like this and a regulation like this that doesn't differentiate between the different types of roads that we're looking at, on Malibu Road, that one regulation has created a bunch of non-conforming homes, okay? And you think, well, it's fine, they're grandfathered. Well, the problem is you can't do anything with it if it's illegal non-conforming without getting a variance. So you can be sitting at the same distance off the road as all of your neighbors and you're more than 25 feet, but if your mother-in-law needs to come live with you and you need to build a room on for her to live in, you have to come to the city to get a variance before you can do it. To me, that's bad business, okay? And the function of the changes that I've made between, collectors with larger amounts of right-of-way to the collectors with smaller amounts of right-of-way is to, one, put a lot of, 90% of the houses and things that we have along those collectors back into a conforming status so that they can come and get a building permit. They're not going to hurt a thing. We're not expanding roads. Malibu Road, we couldn't expand it if we wanted to. We could probably, put some curb and gutter on it and maybe a sidewalk, but we tried that and we had to try to get property from people and we don't have a sidewalk on Malibu. But the function of it is you're trying to be equitable. And if you look at Nichols Road, it's got 60 foot of right-of-way. It's got far more commercial business on it than, say, a Malibu does. And you continue to have those folks 55 foot off, but that still only puts them 25 foot from their property line at 55 feet. So it's far more equitable. Local streets, which is our standard in a subdivision, there's absolutely no reason to have anything more than a 25-foot setback from the property line. And I'll tell you why. Property lines are consistent. If you go out and you're trying to measure for a 25-foot setback, you've got property pins. Any surveyor or any contractor can go out there with a tape measure and stretch it 25 foot from a pin, and they know where they're at. When you start putting pavement center lines in there, then you have no idea where that might be, and you've got contractors in here going, okay, so how do I measure from the center of the pavement? I don't want them to have to do that. I think it's bad business and it's bad service to the community. I'm trying to put this in a way that I've been enforcing it now for over 20 years. And if you have any questions, I would love to hear them. But other than that, I would recommend approval of this change to the ordinance.
Are there any comments or questions on this? Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes. Do you have anything else you want to give us tonight, Terry?
I don't have anything further. I've already introduced Mark. Seems like he's not going to have any issues being part of the conversation, which is good. I'm going to make sure that he and Luke aren't sitting together again. I hope that all of you were able to, one way, shape, or form, interact with our July 4th celebration or our Freedom Fest. It went off amazing. I didn't get to go down to the park because my kids worked all day and just didn't want to, but we walked down to where the hill drops off on Malibu, and we could watch the fireworks from there just fine. It was an amazing show, loud. It was extremely loud. It was awesome. And we've gotten a ton of positive input from the community. Keegan was one of the main folks working on that. They were folding and drawing and doing all kinds of things for months going into that. So everybody that was involved made a great situation out of what could have been a not great situation. And I think it went well enough that we might look at doing something similar from now on with our Summerfest or Freedom Fest. So that went great. Other than that, lots of craziness going on through town. You know, drive through every once in a while and see what we have going because something changes every day. And as always, if you have anything that you need, don't hesitate to call or stop by. I'm always here.
We brought some of our camera friends out to the thing, so hopefully we see some of that on National A&E in the winter. So,
Right.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
That's just meeting everything.
Huh?